You know, child mental health professionals are like any other profession. There's good ones, there's okay ones, and there's ones that are not so great. But the one that I want to warn you about, with dire foreboding warnings, is the one known as Dr. Google. Hi everyone, this is Dr. Brett Pierce, child psychologist, coming at you with a little bit of a rant and a warning in today's video. I'd like to talk with you about the dangers of Googling your child's mental health symptoms, and we will get into that. But before we get into that, of course, it is time for the 3 T's. So, tea number 1 for today is Yunnan black tea. It's one of my favorite black teas, and I'm in my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles mug today. It's good stuff. Tea number 2 is the toy, and I found he's got a broken horn, but he's still cool. I found this really interesting kind of sparkly dragon crystal ball thing at a thrift store a minute ago, and of course could not say no because it's just too cool. I like sparkly stuff sometimes. And finally, number 3 for today is the talk, and we are talking about Googling your symptoms. I think there's even a funny parody song on YouTube called Don't Google Your Symptoms. Maybe we can find a link to it. This also came up because I saw a meme the other day on LinkedIn where someone had taken a photograph of this really cool sign in a doctor's office that says, "Please don't compare your Google search with my medical degree," or something like that. And I hate to sound too professionally snobby, but frankly, folks, it is true. I cannot tell you how much time I spend in my office trying to tell folks, okay, but just because you found it on the interwebs does not necessarily make it true. And this is by no means me knocking researching things about kids' behavior, kids' feelings, about child mental health and things like that. Research and information are really good. But when you're talking about something as complex, as context dependent, and as nuanced as child behavior, child development, and child mental health, it can be very dangerous. Because the websites that you're going to find, if you were to say, look up autism and symptoms of autism, you're going to find a lot of stuff about sensory issues, having a difficult time with transitions, about speech delays, about tantrums, about sensory issues, which I can't quite remember if I mentioned those. And it's going to be easy for you to be dead convinced that all of those things are actually direct diagnostic signs of autism, for example. And actually, only a couple of them sort of are. That's right, speech delays in them of themselves are not actually a part of the diagnostic criteria for autism, and that's an entire rabbit hole that we probably won't go down in this video, but I can in a future video if folks want. The other thing is that if you look up tantrums, for example, and you're trying to figure out what it's a symptom of, the reality is that tantrums are a symptom of just about any kid who's struggling with virtually any kind of emotional or behavioral problem. It's true. Kids with ADHD will have a particular kind of tantrums more than other kids. Kids who are depressed have more tantrums than most of the kids. Kids with anxiety problems, kids with trauma, kids with autism. I mean, you pretty much name a mental health concern with kids. Kids who are just overly stressed out aren't going to handle their feelings well because tantrums are effectively just a kid who's having a hard time regulating feelings. And so that can happen for all kinds of reasons. But the point is, I'm guessing that pretty much no website out there, or maybe very few, are going to sit you down and go, but hold on, this isn't to say that this is a diagnostic sign or that it's somehow proof that your child has this disorder. It's just something that you'll often see. And folks out there on the interwebs, I think, sometimes miss out on all of that. So I totally get it. It's really subtle and complex stuff, and I had to study and train for a very long time to learn how to sort through it all. But I say again, just because you found it on the internet does not necessarily make it true. In fact, if I had a wish list for disclaimers on any kind of internet search when it comes to child mental health and child behavior. The first on that wish list would be a disclaimer that says, just so you know, the most common emotional and behavioral difficulties in kids, just like in adults, the most common diagnoses, probably are anxiety and depression. So if your kid is really, really struggling emotionally and behaviorally, there's a substantial chance that your kid is having a hard time with mood and or anxiety, which is to say feeling a lot of nervousness and stress, because it just seems to be something that we miss a lot with Google searches. I also would prefer something like, well, we can give you some general information, but please, 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 please be very careful with this, and don't spend too much time Googling your child's symptoms, because you can easily kind of lead yourself astray. A couple of other examples, since we're on the subject of autism in particular. If you take something like depression, which is actually pretty common in kids as mental health difficulties go, just as it is in adults, and you can see how it could be easy to become confused unless you really are thinking about things carefully. So for starters, depressed kids very often have a hard time with temper problems, particularly depressed boys. And folks who have a lot of temper problems don't often have a lot of success in social situations and friendships, because they're blowing up and snapping and being unreasonable and having a hard time compromising because of low frustration tolerance and temper issues. You combine that with the fact that depressed people are very often kind of sad and withdrawn, lack a lot of energy, aren't showing as much interest in things that they normally would really enjoy. And then you combine that with the fact that folks who struggle with depression very often have low frustration tolerance, and therefore may have a hard time transitioning from things they want to do, like say playing video games, to something they don't want to do, such as say doing homework. And you can start to see how it would be very easy to convince yourself that actually quite routine symptoms of depression in kids are actually symptoms of autism. Trouble with transitions, social problems, being kind of flat and withdrawn with other people, which can, be a sign of autism if it's the right style of what we're talking about. Long of it short, you wouldn't know that unless you had a lot of experience and training and knowledge differentiating, say, childhood depression from autism. So long of it short, if you're concerned that your kid has a diagnosis of some kind, by all means, get some information. But also, please, save yourself a lot of stress and a lot of hassle, and just get your kid into a professional. Get your kid into your family practice doc or your pediatrician to get the process started if you want, or just contact a child mental health professional and get right in, because we can help you steer your ship in the right direction and help you avoid a lot of common pitfalls that can cause a lot of stress for sure. So at any rate, thank you for watching. This is by no means a knock on the wonderful tool that we call the internet. I love it and use it all the time. It's a wonderful tool, but it has its awesomeness and it has its concerns. And this is one of them, at least for me. So please do consider subscribing if you found this rant to be of use. Also, there's a bell notification that you can smash in order to be made aware of when my next video gets posted. Otherwise, this is Dr. Brett Pierce giving you the warning to please be careful about Googling your child's mental health problems. Thank you.